I hope you have time and a bite to eat, as this story is quite extensive and covers events from the end of 2019 until last week. According to the rules, all names have been changed. Here's the backstory. My soon-to-be ex-wife was my high school sweetheart. We started dating in 1992 at the age of 17, and at 45 we are still together. She's the only woman I've ever been with, and we got married at 22, right out of college. A year later, the first of two children appeared in our lives, boys aged 22 and 17. I dedicated 23 years to her, building a house and working tirelessly to provide her with the life she wanted. Despite the inevitable struggles in marriage, we've always found a way to overcome it, which makes the revelation of her affair all the more shocking. Let's go back to March 2020, when I first felt something was wrong. We've been in a funk for the past 2 months. I've been recovering from reconstructive knee surgery. I tore my ACL in the fall of 2019, still limited in my range of motion at about 55%. It affected various aspects of our lives. At work, due to a work-related injury, I was unable to perform my normal household duties, which caused me to fall behind. While my sons helped as much as they could, tasks that only I could do had to be delayed or stepped in by my wife, which she didn't like. In the bedroom, things also came to a standstill between us. Before my injury, it was already slowing down, but in my current state, it stopped completely. During these months, she, let's call her Sue, spent more time after work with colleagues. From November 2019 to March 2020, this was a common occurrence. Naturally, I thought nothing of it, given the 23 trust-filled years we'd spent together. Sue and I had our own friends, and we had things in common. I used to hang out with friends often without any problems. Everything was above everything else. However, around January of this year, I noticed something strange. Sue began to move away noticeably. While we were in a funk, she never denied me this much love. The usual hugs and kisses stopped. Her phone, which was always in her hands, became a source of suspicion, as she is now being guarded. Even her interactions with me became more intense, as if she couldn't care less. Fast forward to March, COVID has arrived, and New York City is on lockdown. The career we choose is considered important, so we don't need to work from home. Having recently been cleared to return to work after 5 months, I was eager to get back to work. 5 months on my back, knee rehab, and not being able to be physically active drove me crazy. For context, I love exercise. I'm an avid martial artist, usually going to the gym 4 days a week, in addition to all the home projects I've been working on. Within a week or two of the lockout, my STBXW informs me that she will need to start additional hours. Again, I don't think it's because of her area. I assumed it would be every other day, but no, it was every day, not just for an hour or two. She would come home 3 or more hours later, immediately shower, spend some time with me, some time with our 17-year-old boyfriend, 22 years old lives with his girlfriend crosstown, and then go to bed. As I became more adept at supporting myself on my knees, our intercourse resumed. However, as you can probably guess, she wasn't mentally or emotionally present for it, a fact I quickly noticed. By the beginning of April, the situation became clearer for me. All signs pointed to her having an affair. That's when I decided I needed to find answers. I searched the internet for signs of infidelity, and she pretty much ticked the boxes for this behavior. My search then turned to finding proof. I started with her social media by looking at her Facebook posts a few months before, which were pretty much normal. They included pictures of us and our sons, pictures with her friends, and quite a few of her nights out with coworkers. These photos include many of her closest friends from work, as well as a couple of people I've never met from her work. But one recurring thing caught my eye in many of these pictures. One guy. In each photo, he is uncomfortably close to her, with his arm around her shoulder or his arm around her waist. Too close for a guy I've never met in person. Needless to say, I had a sour taste in my mouth. But that was not the worst. No. The worst part was that apparently this guy is her Facebook friend and follows her on Instagram. So I went to look up his Facebook account, and wouldn't you know it? I'm blocked. Why the hell can't I see this guy's Facebook account, but he's friends with her? On Facebook? Yes, I'm in Batman detective mode right now. I didn't even try to deny it at the time. I knew she was cheating on me with this guy. My mission was to find out how long and over the course of April and May, which I did. You know, up until then, I never knew the depth of information you could get from phone, text, and email records. We have a cell phone package with a family plan, and I was able to get quite a bit of data. My soon-to-be ex-wife's data history was telling. The two most frequent numbers she interacted with from October 2019 to April 2020 were my own, and a number I had never seen before. Guess whose number it was? A quick Google check confirmed that it was the guy in the photos who blocked me on Facebook. We'll call it POS because that's what it is. Again, at this point, the picture becomes even clearer. But many of their messages and texts were disconnected, indicating that she was deleting many of them. I knew she was cheating on me with this guy, but nothing in the data could serve as a hot lead. I needed more proof. At this point, I tell my best friend Oz what I found. He asked me if I faced her with what I had, and I said no, because I felt it wasn't enough. Then he told me about a program I could download to apparently monitor her communications in real time. I won't name it because I don't know the rules that exist here. I installed it, synced my data plan, and waited. A few days after I did, I finally saw it. A line of text between them talking about how much fun they had last night and planning to do it again over the weekend. Boom. Gut punch. To say it was completely devastating was an understatement. I guess that moment counts as my D-Day, and the next 2 days after that, I was just broken. I actively distanced myself from her for those 2 days right after D-Day, which she noticed. She tried to comfort me and ask me what happened, but I brushed it off and left her presence. I couldn't even look at her. This woman, to whom I gave 23 years of my life, to whom I gave everything as a husband and more, walked out of our marriage for a guy who was only 5 years older than our oldest son. On the third day, I wasn't even bored anymore. I was furious. I informed Oz that my suspicions were confirmed, and he asked if I had run into her. I replied in the negative, expressing my desire to sell out beyond a simple divorce. I intended to thoroughly disrupt and destroy her life. In formulating the plan, I took inspiration from a quote in my readings about infidelity that emphasized unpredictability as the enemy. This principle became the basis of my strategy, making her life difficult while secretly planning my departure. In early June, the program remained installed, and every night I diligently collected data from their messages. Their exchanges reflected a full-fledged relationship, including romantic text messages, romantic expressions, and profane content. After I stopped actively browsing content, I focused on gathering information and cataloging it on my private FPS server. At the same time, I started behaving unconventionally, going out at odd hours and coming home later than she did. In her presence, I increased my use of the phone, responding to her inquiries about my actions with nonchalant, simple things before putting the phone away. I changed my login details to deny her access. Throughout our marriage, transparency has been the norm, but around the time her alleged affair began, she changed her Facebook and phone passwords, citing recent security breaches as a cover for concealing the affair. After informing Oz of my plan and sharing the situation with my older sister and 2 close friends, I let them in on the secret. For context, Oz and I have been childhood friends, and the other friends, Joey and Nina, we've known since high school. Nina becomes relevant later. In July, my STBXW is in full paranoia mode, escalating texts and calls, asking about my whereabouts and expressing concern about my actions. The seeds planted in her head last month are starting to sprout, especially in her interactions with the POS. She confides in him her doubts and confusion, accusing me of becoming cold and distant. The audacity of this woman. Among these interactions with the POS, she suggests that they should avoid meeting at our house by confirming his presence in my house. Thanks, Sue. In a specific message, the POS asks if she's worried that I might cheat on her, which would enrage her. Reading this exchange brings me immense joy and laughter. A cheating wife argues with her partner about the possibility of her husband cheating. The irony is palpable. To clarify, I am no longer affiliated with anyone. When I go out, I usually hang out at Oz or Joey's having drinks, watching fights, and hanging out with friends. Also, I get to be at my older sister's house, hanging out with her and my Bill, who is like a big brother to me. My sister is 52 and her husband is 58. She informed him about my STBXW's infidelity, but not my plan, as he tends to be a bit of a chatterbox. Fast forward to October and things will intensify. In my fake romance for 3 months, Sue was well aware of my active withdrawal. From the time I made my plan until October 20th, 2020, the day she ran into me, there was no physical contact between us. No hugging, kissing, or initiating intercourse. Nothing. Not that she needed it. She continued to engage with POS, either at his home or in motels. That day she calls me at work, which was rare before this all started, and asked me to come straight home after work, claiming she has something important to tell me. I will not deceive you all. I half expected her to admit her infidelity, but of course she didn't. Instead, I come home to find her asking if I'm happy with her. Nerves. She points out that I spend too much time away, lack commitment, and our bed life has dried up. She suggests that I may be pushing her away out of resentment for her treatment during my months of knee rehab. Then the main line. She asks if I am cheating on her. Folks, I collapsed on the floor, snarling uncontrollably like the Joker in a tantrum. While it may have seemed like I was laughing scornfully at the idea of cheating on her, I was actually laughing at the sheer irony unfolding before me. A good 2 minutes in fits of laughter, I composed myself enough to answer. I sit down, look into her eyes for the first time in months, nod without answering, get up, brush myself off, kiss the top of her head, and go to sleep. Later that evening in my office, I decided to check what she was telling him, given the brevity of the incident. I run the app and they're actually texting in real time. She tells the POS that she thinks he's cheating on her. She recalled meeting him tonight, describing his reaction as a laugh. She feels that he no longer cares about her feelings and is convinced that he is gone. She sees it as karma and admits she lost him. The smile on my face must have resembled the Cheshire cat. She was breaking down. The POS tried to comfort her by saying that if I cared enough, she wouldn't have to look to him for comfort. However, there was doubt in the tone of her answers. She had the audacity to walk out of our marriage during my legal injury. Maintained an affair for almost a year, but the thought of losing me to another woman made her hesitate? What a weakling! Simultaneously, I carried out the second part of my revenge plan by getting my financial affairs in order. In September, I consulted with a family law attorney to begin divorce proceedings, armed with the strong evidence I had gathered. Since New York was at fault in the divorce, conclusive evidence of Sue's infidelity pretty much ensured that I could catch her in the divorce proceedings. My attorney advised me to organize all my financial documents in anticipation of a potential property division. Moving on, I secretly withdrew all my funds from our joint account and transferred them to my personal account. Also, I initiated my apartment search as part of Phase 2. Fast forward to November, and my behavior remains consistent. In fact, I reinforced it. This is where my friend Nina becomes important. For context, Nina and Sue were never close. I met Nina 2 years before Sue in my freshman year of high school. From the beginning, Sue saw Nina as a threat because she is my closest friend. Although Sue has never said it outright, her distrust of Nina is obvious to anyone paying attention. In contrast, Nina was never a fan of Sue. Early in my relationship with Sue, Nina revealed that Sue was intruding on our circle of friends, while I did not do the same with Sue's friends. This bothered Nina because she understood why Sue was doing this. Jealousy. Even now, Sue doesn't have any male friends in her circle other than Puss, and Nina is the only female in my friend group. Nina, who was overseas due to the virus, returned to New York on November 3rd. To celebrate her return, Oz, Joey, and I planned a small get-together at Joey's house with dinner and drinks, following CDC guidelines. Nina, the mastermind, came up with the idea to encourage Sue by taking pictures of Sue in the POS, similar to the ones I found a few months ago, and posting them on her Facebook. And that's exactly what we did. Sue found out on the 5th, because some friends noticed my updates and noticed how unpleasantly close Nina and I were getting. This completely confused her as she still believed I was cheating. Although she probably wanted to blame Nina, she knew that Nina was stuck in Europe for most of the year. However, that didn't stop her from trying to criticize me that night for being comfortable in the photos. I saw this as a great opportunity to deliver the main blow for my knockout punch. I mentioned the pictures of her and the POS from last year, noting that he was quite comfortable in them. I noted that I didn't get out of shape because of it. Deer in headlights. It was the first time I even mentioned the guy's name in all of this. The gears in her head started turning in real time as she tried to explain these pictures. She didn't know I'd seen them until now, given how rarely I use Facebook. When I post something, it becomes an event. That's why the pictures with Nina got so much attention in our circles. Зрение, как кажется. Но там ничего нет. She apologized if the photos upset me and offered to delete them. However, the pictures aren't what hurt me. I was hurt by the fact that she was involved with a guy, deceiving me by claiming she was working extra hours and hanging out with friends. As Lieutenant Communications Star Trek, TNG's Worf famously said, "Revenge is a dish best served cold." Since that night, Sue has been unusually clingy and attentive to me, kind of annoying. She tried to induce love and copulation, but I pushed her away every chance I got. In the meantime, I continued to archive everything she shared with Puss. By this point, I was already numb for a long time. Any desire to save his marriage was dead. I checked out the day I started the first phase of my plan. She admitted to him that I felt worse, expressing insecurity and feeling like I hated her, which I did. Then comes the bombshell. She could no longer see him. The guilt was overwhelming, and she felt like karma was choking her. She couldn't risk losing me. Despite the love for POS deep down, she claimed she was still in love with me, stressing the need to save our marriage before losing me. "No, honey, you're about 8 months too late for that." POS lost his temper, declaring his love for her and insisting that she was making a mistake. This text thread was last updated about 3 weeks ago. For the rest of November and December, Sue was left in limbo, trying to gauge my space and not knowing if I was really cheating. Meanwhile, the POS was bombarding her phone daily, but she didn't answer. I watched her frequently check her phone and then quickly put it away. Meanwhile, the second phase of the plan was officially completed. The divorce papers have been drawn up. I found a studio apartment in Co-op City, signed a 2-year lease, and all my money was in my personal account. I was ready to drop my haymaker. We are now on Thanksgiving Day. My oldest and his girlfriend organized a small gathering with our immediate families. It was my oldest, his girlfriend, her parents, me, Sue, and our youngest. We had a great night, and my oldest girl, who was studying to be a chef, did all the cooking herself. Since I had to maintain the appearance that there was nothing wrong between Sue and me, I made love to her several times that evening, with kisses on the cheek, sweet hugs, and arms around her shoulders. These gestures did not go unnoticed by her, and she admired them. Mind you, this was the first time I'd touched this woman since I kissed the top of her head the night she ran into me in October, about 2 months ago. Not gonna lie, I was loath to do it, but I had to. I couldn't risk the plan, and being at a distance in front of my boys, a girl my senior age and her parents would have raised the alarm. So my youngest decided to stay the night with his older brother, and Sue and I headed home. On the way home, she thanked me for being nice to her and said, "I don't know what you're going through, baby, but I'm here for you." I had to hold myself back from bursting into maniacal laughter again and replied, "I know, I just need time." So for the first time for real since spring, we were close that night. I figured why not, with what I was about to do, I might as well take some action before I cut her out of my existence. I won't go into details, but it wasn't lovemaking. When I finished, she was a lump of flesh trying to figure out where the truck that hit her was going. No hugs or anything afterwards. I just got up, took a shower, and went to sleep in my office. To her dismay, I used birth control for the first time in 2 decades. It definitely confused her, but she didn't ask any questions. I sure as hell wasn't going to rip off her, knowing she'd been doing this to POS for months at that point. I woke up the next day and checked my handy little spyware, and for the first time in weeks it responded to the POS. The dude became a complete novella, professing his love for her, claiming that she was wasting her time trying to rekindle the flame that had died in me. She claimed that she spent 23 years in prison with me and deserved the love and affection of a man who would respect her. Mind you, this guy is 27, 5 years older than our oldest son, and he's in love with a 45-year-old married mother of 2. What a first-class, high-quality sim. Is she determined to destroy our marriage and tear down the house we built for this guy? A handsome boy with a soft side? Haha. In response, she repeated essentially the same sentiments from their previous conversation. She loves him, she enjoyed our time together, but she can't risk losing me. I'm still the love of her life, but she'll always have a place in her heart for him. They can remain friends if he chooses, but the physical relationship between them is over. He asked her to see him one last time this week, and yes, she agreed. Another one on the way, right? Who am I to say anything? Here's what I did to her last night. I have, of course, added all of this to my archive that I have compiled. On December 4th, Phase 3, the final phase of Operation Ghost of Shinobi, began. The divorce papers were in hand, the new place of residence had been determined, and now it was necessary to gradually start taking things out of the house. But first I had to break the news to my boys. That Friday evening I called my senior home, asked them to join me in the office, and laid everything out on the table. Not specifics, but the fact that their mother has been cheating on me for over a year, and I'm going to file for divorce soon. My 17-year-old was especially shocked because he had recently had his first taste of infidelity. His first girlfriend cheated on him just 4 months ago. The second time he witnessed the heartbreak of his own mother being capable of such a thing, it hit him hard. My oldest took it a lot better and offered to take my brother to live with him until it was over, which I agreed to. We packed up some of his things and he asked me if I was going to be okay. I assured him that I would be fine, and so would he. I promised that we would be fine. And then they left. The hardest part was over, and it was time to arm the nukes. Over the next few weeks, day after day, Oz helped me move some of my most sensitive possessions out of the house. I gave him a list of all the specific things to grab while Sue and I were at work and left him a spare key. These things Sue wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't told her they were gone. I also got a new phone and phone number, letting everyone who wanted to know, Ozu, Joey, Nina, my boys, big sister, and my mother, my new contact information. Meanwhile, I continued playing tricks on Sue, and she was none the wiser. I was showing her bits of affection to keep her off the trail while she was in contact with the POS. Not as much as before, but the emotional connection was still there. The fog was faint, but still there. The whole time I was collecting everything, and I mean everything. Every bit of data I have archived since starting the plan. Call logs, texts, photos, emails, everything. I started making prints. I must have spent over $1,500 on staple supplies. Printers, ink, paper, bindings, works. I have cataloged everything in the binder in order, from the beginning of this case to the last moment 2 weeks ago on December 16th. There are 14 of them. I boxed each one, gift wrapped them, and addressed them to different recipients. My father died 7 years ago. Her parents, her 2 sisters, her brother, her HR, I forgot to mention. The POS works for the same company, and there is a rule that prohibits relationships between companies due to the nature of her job, a few friends, a POS, and a POS parent. I took all these packages to the post office and sent them on December 16th, scheduled for delivery between December 22nd and 24th. Perfect. Now we're on the eve of Christmas. Sue came home around the usual time, not sure if she saw the POS as I stopped tracking her on the app on the 18th. Assuming I had gathered all the information I needed, she showered, spent some time with me, and I ended the night in the living room. Yes, I know, I'm not the nicest person. Finally came the last stage. The nuclear weapons I had armed since June were about to be launched. In the middle of the night, I woke up, wrapped up one of the 3 remaining binders with the divorce papers stuck to the inside cover, and left it on my side of the bed with a note that said, "Merry Christmas." I left an old phone and a lawyer's business card nearby. I gathered the rest of my essentials to fill 2 backpacks and left my home of 23 years for the last time. That, my friends, was a week ago. To Sue, I'm completely off the grid, gone like a ghost of a shadow. She got blocked on FB, but for some reason she didn't block me, so I'm watching the fallout. It is absolutely glorious. My parcels reached everyone I sent them to, and Sue faced a backlash. The younger sister completely dissuaded her. Both parents condemned her. Mom mercilessly tore into her. I know my mom has a mean streak, but what she called Sue was unfathomable. Sue is desperately trying to find out if anyone knows where I am, but those who do aren't saying a word. On her FB feed, she's trying desperately to contact me, apparently knowing what I'm probably looking for. But without a lawyer, I don't say a word to her. This will be the next time I share oxygen with her. She has no way to tell to paint me as the bad guy because I exposed her in front of everyone who matters to her. According to a mutual friend who works at the same company as her and the POS apparently put on administrative leave from tomorrow, so yes, most likely, she will remain unemployed in 2021. As for the last two binders, one was given to my attorney as a final piece of evidence in my upcoming divorce, and the last one I put in my stash to be burned in Joey's pyre when the divorce is finalized. Do I feel guilty? No, not even in the slightest. For 23 years, I did well with this woman. I gave her the home she wanted, the family she wanted, the life I thought we both deserved, and I loved her unconditionally. I never hesitated. I was never lost. I never even thought of breaking my promises. When there was a problem that I felt was affecting our marriage, I came to her and told her, and we dealt with her as best we could. Instead of coming to me and expressing her displeasure with our bed life at the time, she chose to seek solace in another man's bed. So no, I have no sympathy for what I did or for her. She can burn in hell. That's all I care about. The most I have to lose is my house, car, and maybe a couple $100 a month in child support. However, given that the divorce is filed under the adultery statute and that NYS is at fault, this can be overturned with the overwhelming evidence I have presented. As for me, she's dead to me, and I'm never looking back. At first discovering her infidelity, I thought how to save the situation. However, watching the audacity of their interactions and subsequent communications infuriated me. What started out as regret and sadness quickly turned into rage. When I confided in my friend Oz, I had already decided to take a scorched earth approach. Unexpectedly, I continued this approach longer than I intended. I could have met her 4 or 5 months before Christmas, but I admitted that I enjoyed making her suffer. It turned into a game, and the prize was watching her bend. Although it may make me sound like a bit of a sadist, she destroyed our marriage and I was determined to cut her off with everyone we knew. Although I am not inherently angry or vindictive, I am a firm believer in treating others fairly and following the golden rule. However, I cannot tolerate disrespect. My STBXW is a sensitive, shallow, self-entitled person who prioritizes her own desires over our marriage. She will receive neither forgiveness nor mercy from me. The coming months will be difficult as my divorce will be marked by hurtful words and angry actions. However, I will remain steadfast in my mission to destroy her, offering no pity or leniency, just as she showed me none when she broke her promises. This battle is far from over, but my determination surpasses it. I am determined to break her and leave her with nothing, without feeling any pangs of conscience. Christmas was the first full day I spent in my new apartment, a work in progress where I plan to live for at least 2 years. Although I still need to purchase more items, I have generally turned it into my home. My sons, together with an older friend, spent a significant part of the day with me. A friend brought treats and prepared a delicious meal. It allowed me to engage in meaningful conversations with my sons, a connection I hadn't felt in a long time. My older sister also visited, brought more goodies and spent time with us, seeing her nephews for the first time in almost a year. Their presence had a positive effect on me. Otherwise, if I was alone, I might drink to excess. Everyone left around 8 o'clock, and I decided to hang out with Joey and his wife Claudia. We spent a couple of hours together, had a couple of drinks, and then I went home. The next important event happened on December 29th, 2020. Around noon, I received a text from Nina asking if I was busy that night. Since I was away, we arranged to meet after I finished work. We went to a nearby diner for 25% indoor dining. Nina was open about her feelings, admitting that she had liked me since she was a teenager, but had never had the chance to express it because of Sue's presence in the picture. I've known Nina for 2 years longer than Sue, and she was part of my social circle with Oz and Joey. In high school, we were the outcasts, the rave kids who didn't fit in with the usual cliques. Then Nina had problems with her weight and diabetes, but we always had chemistry. Today, Nina is a personal trainer and yoga instructor, transformed into a beautiful swan. Long story short, we decided that we would start seeing each other after my divorce was finalized. Yes, we slept together that night, and I'm not ashamed. Nina was a better friend to me than Sue ever was. It's not to say that Sue wasn't my best friend, but in the quarter of a century I knew Nina. She was always there for me, even giving up on her feelings to let me get on with my life with Sue. This selflessness resonated with me in a way I didn't expect. A vantage point that I am justifying my decision in my head, it was the right choice for me, and I plan to explore what the future holds for Nina with all my heart. And now to yesterday, the day I met with my wife and her lawyer to discuss the divorce. It's been 2 weeks since I stopped communicating with my soon-to-be ex-wife, STBXW. I got a call from my lawyer this Monday to say that Sue's lawyer has set up a meeting to discuss the terms of the divorce for yesterday, January 6th, 2021. I met with him on Tuesday to outline my desired terms: an uncontested divorce citing Sue's neglect of the marriage. In summary, I propose a full asset split, selling her my half of the house and keeping our respective vehicles. I retain title to my cabin in the Poconos, and due to marital neglect, she will not receive any family support from me. As for my son, who I will call 17, he is free to choose his residence after the divorce, probably with me. On Wednesday, I dressed up in my best Johnny Cash attire and attended a meeting at the attorney's office with my wife and her attorney. She looked disheveled and barely holding herself together. Without getting bogged down in legal jargon, her attorney presented the terms of the settlement, which I immediately rejected. We agreed to a legal separation that resulted in an uncontested divorce. The only adjustment is that I will be giving $653 a month in temporary spousal support to cover utilities until she gets a job. She was fired for inappropriate behavior. This support will continue for up to a year after completion. Financially, it won't affect me much, even if it takes her time to find a new job. After a full calendar year after the divorce, she remains alone. It's a small price to pay for freedom. If all goes well, I'll be free of her by early April, about 3 months from now. After the meeting, my lawyer gave his last words and promised to keep me informed about the progress of filing the documents. Sue came up to me outside and asked if she could talk. I agreed. While she held it together during the meeting, she broke down outside, expressing remorse and saying she never meant for things to go this far. She admitted that she fell in love with another man, but pleaded guilty to cheating on her husband. She apologized and offered to start over in a few years. I informed her that this would be our last conversation. I reminded her that our son is almost an adult, capable of making his own choices. I conveyed that I gave half of my life and unconditional love just so that she would confess her love to another. I expressed my inability to forgive her, stating that I loved who she once was, but despised those who stood before me. I made it clear that it would be too soon to see her again. Here we are on the sidewalk in Midtown Manhattan, and she's making a scene, crying her eyes out. A few people pass by, give sidelong glances, but at that moment I didn't care. I had no intention of publicly offending her. I have already destroyed her socially and professionally. However, I needed to let out the last drop of emotion I felt for her. I finished by telling her that I have no regrets about the 23 years I spent as her husband. I regretted that in those 23 years, she took the easy way out, and I thought she was mine, when in reality it was just my turn. After putting down the Raycons, I turned and walked away. Later that evening, her father called and apologized. He praised me for always being a good person to his daughter and expressed his disappointment in her actions. I will miss the old one. He has become my father since my father died many years ago. However, I don't see myself maintaining a relationship with anyone from her side of the family. After that call, I went on Facebook and symbolically changed my relationship status to divorced. It's not final yet, but I think it's over. When I make a post on Facebook, that's an event, so a lot of people started contacting through Messenger, asking questions. I went all out, stating that I had filed for divorce from Sue earlier that day. Nina called, shocked at how quickly I pulled the trigger. I asked her to come, and she came. We spent the night together, talking until the early hours of the morning. I haven't felt this level of relief and connection in a very long time. Nina gets me, and I can't get enough of her around. From the day she confided in me, she was the only thing on my mind. Some may say it's bad that I'm moving on so quickly, but as far as I'm concerned, my marriage ended the day the POS let Sue touch him, so I need to. So that's it. My divorce is pending, and I am about to start a relationship with Nina. We will take it slow and not announce anything until the divorce from Sue is legal and official. As for Sue, I didn't care what happened to her. She could move from POS to our old house, which is important to me. I will get my money for the house in 2021 in 4 quarterly payments, and aside from the $653 I will pay her monthly, I will never have to see or speak to her again. Since only my closest friends, 2 sons, older sister and mother, have my new contact information, and I have completely blocked my soon-to-be ex-wife, stbx.edu, on all social media. She has had no means since I left her on the eve of Christmas. However, some of our mutual friends do. Last night I was in my apartment getting a voice call notification on Messenger from one of these friends, one of the few who didn't dump her after I started an affair with her. She wasted no time when I responded by saying that I was checking on Sue, STBXW, and found her passed out in her bedroom, foaming at the mouth and 2 empty pill bottles next to her. She is in intensive care in a serious but stable condition. The doctor said she would probably make it, but then she wouldn't be well. She begged and begged me to come. Her parents and 2 of her sisters were also at the hospital. I assume they were notified after the hospital tried to contact me, but Sue will still have my old number as an emergency contact. I just told her no. Sue is no longer my problem and has chosen to take the easy way out, rather than deal with the shame and anguish of the 23-year marriage she ruined. I then told her friend that if Sue's family was there, they could help her sort things out. But as far as Sue and I are concerned, Sue and I are gone. Then I ended the conversation. I had a few hours to think about it, and my sons called me this morning to ask if I knew. I confirmed that I did, but I also made it clear to both of them that if they wanted to be there and support their mother, I would not judge them or judge them, because she is their mother. However, I personally wash off her and no longer care what she does for or to herself. They were surprised by this, but respected my position. Now that her suicide attempt has become known, many friends who have distanced themselves from her are resurfacing and urging me to support her through this difficult time, despite what she has done to me. I am informed that her affair partner tried to visit her this morning, but was not allowed to because he is not a member of the family. I am forced to go to her, but I have no feelings for this woman anymore. I'm not very long ago. I checked myself out in the process of getting revenge for her betrayal, and I stand by the fact that I don't care at all about what she did. In fact, it makes me hate her even more. She was the one who cheated, who thought that an almost year-long affair with a guy 5 years older than her oldest son was worth destroying 23 years. Even now, faced with the consequences of her choice, she chooses the most selfish way to deal with it. Now that she's likely to survive, she immediately elicited sympathy from everyone who took her on, and I'm portrayed as a jaded ex-husband who most of her family doesn't want to sympathize with, except for her father, who reached out and said, "That respects my decision to stay away." It's like I've never known this woman in 23 years, and it's come to this. I understand that the way I ended the relationship may have put her in a bad mental state, but a whole new set of problems arose. Either she had a complete breakdown and decided to harm herself, or she made a risky, calculated move to curry favor with those who had condemned her for betraying me a few weeks ago. I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not going to visit Sue. She waived her right to my custody when she allowed her lover to sink into her. I may seem heartless, but despite my calm demeanor, my feelings are still very raw. I don't care about this woman and haven't for a long time. If you were me, you would have seen her actions differently, perhaps tormenting her for months, cheating on her, making her think I was cheating on her and she was cheating on me, and destroying her socially and professionally led to her collapse. I may be a heartless sociopath, but as Arthur Fleck said, you get what you deserve. I gave this woman half of my life and did everything to be the best husband she could have. By her own admission, I had nothing to do with her decision to betray our marriage. She did it for her, and her selfishness knows no bounds. I'm glad to get rid of her. If that makes me a bad guy because I won't see her and never plan on hanging out with her again, so be it. I am true to my beliefs. She made the choice to cheat on me, to put her needs before the needs of our marriage. So now it's my turn to choose me over everything else. She could be rotting in the darkest pit of hell, which worries me. Let everyone else help her fix herself. My responsibility to care for her welfare ended the day we signed our separation agreement. I just had to get it off my chest. If you're going to judge me for feeling like that, keep it to yourself. After 23 years and 2 children, I never really knew this woman, and I don't sympathize with her, and I never will. Let her rot. Sue's father informed me that she had been moved from the intensive care unit to the mental health unit. Doctors are still monitoring her mental state. She is conscious and aware again, but clearly lethargic. Her father told me that she asked if I was coming to see her, and he said no, after which she shut down. He respectfully said that he would only give further news if I asked, understanding the space I was in. Also, I scheduled a consultation for the 17th, with the first consultation this coming Monday. Today, contrary to everything I said before, I decided to visit Sue. She had been out of the hospital for 4 days now, and strangely enough, it was Nina who convinced me that seeing her in her weakened state might help me get rid of the contempt I felt for her. Around the 18th, I called her for the first time since I have been serving her. Her greeting lacked the brightness I had known for more than 2 decades. Her voice was hoarse and weak. The moment she heard my voice, she cried. It took her almost 3 minutes to regain her composure to speak again. Before she could say anything, I informed her that I would come to her place by 8 in the evening, and she agreed. It's about an hour and a half from Cooperative City, where my new apartment is, to my old house. I grabbed a bite to eat at a local pizzeria and headed there. I arrived around 7:47 p.m., and she was at the door before I pulled into the driveway. As I approached, I could see that her actions had taken a toll on her. Noticeably lost weight, unhealthy looking thin. Overall, she looked like the Walking Dead. The first thing she tried was to come over for a hug, and I stopped her cold. She got the hint that I wasn't there to comfort her and backed off immediately. We went inside and sat in the living room. Almost immediately, Sue told me she wanted to tell me everything. She explained that she couldn't live with the guilt of what she had done to me and the boys. From the day we signed our separation agreement, she entered a downward spiral of guilt and agony, which led to her attempting suicide. Her friend, the one who called me from the hospital, noticed her behavior and started coming over to check on her. She said doctors told her that if she hadn't been found just an hour earlier, she would have made it. Sue admitted that she failed me as a wife. Giving in to POS was wrong, as was her choice not to back down when she knew she was getting in too deep. She also apologized for sharing many details of our marriage and saying bad things about me to him. She never imagined herself capable of this, but she was. She believed in her head that she was doing the right thing, but when she thought I was cheating, it hit her like a ton of bricks. The feeling of betrayal was suffocating, and it was necessary to get out as soon as possible, but then it was obviously too late. She then asked me at what point did I stop caring, to which I replied that the night she confronted me about the notion that I was cheating, knowing that she had been working at the POS for months at the time, I lost all respect for her, and this strengthened my determination to implement my plan. She told me that when she woke up on Christmas morning and found the present I had left, she was in a state until she opened it. When she realized what it was and how much I knew, she literally freaked out and hasn't stepped foot in our bedroom since. She was frantically trying to find out if anyone knew where I was. But when she went on Facebook to ask, friends and family started bashing her for what she did, not knowing how everyone found out so quickly. That's when I told her about the other binders. The shock on her face was priceless. It is clear to her that I did this to her. Everything she went through, her friends turning their backs on her family shaming her, and even her losing her job was my hand. After that, she fell silent and became silent. I took the time to use the bathroom, and it was in ruins. The mirror was broken, her skincare products were strewn about, and the bathtub looked like it hadn't been cleaned since she was taken to the hospital. When I got back to the living room, she was holding her face in her hands and crying, and I honestly didn't feel anything. No more anger, no drop of pity. They say the opposite of love is indifference. Looking at her, that's all I felt. She looks up at me and says, I messed up. I ruined us, and I don't know what to do. I can't do it on my own. I remind her that she has her family, the friend who found her, and our sons. But not me. She never will. Never again. I explain that I'm here to get rid of the ordeal she just went through. But the moment I walk out that door, I won't look back. The POS topic comes up shortly after. She reveals that he contacted her 2 days ago, They talked for a couple of hours, and she ended up advising him to move on with his life, find someone younger, and forget about her existence. The rest of the conversation involves Sue apologizing for betraying me and asking if this is really the end. I don't hesitate to look her straight in the eye and confirm that yes, it was over long before I served the divorce notice on Christmas Day. Sensing that it was time to leave, they didn't exchange any more words. I left, leaving her on the couch. I closed the door behind me, got into my car, and drove home. I needed to express this while it was fresh in my mind. The saga of Sue is over. 17 and I are scheduled for counseling in the coming weeks. Nina and I are still going strong with our plan to keep things private until my divorce is final. I remain active, motivated, and looking forward to a future with a woman who I know will appreciate and cherish me as she has done from the shadows for decades. It's time for me to focus on my future life. Update. Anyway, it's been a little over 2 months since I filed divorce papers with my wife, and a month since my last update. Many people expressed concern about my 17-year-old youngest son. A few days after my last update, he started individual counseling. I see. I accompanied him to the first 2 sessions, and since then he has gone to every session by himself. He visits twice a week, and that has helped a lot. He's doing well overall, but I can see that his trust in the relationship has been completely shattered. The long-term effects of his own experience of infidelity, combined with his mother cheating on him and her trying to end, have left a significant scar that I believe may take decades to heal. I found that his experience was even worse than he said. He actually caught his ex-girlfriend with a guy he thought was a friend, but it turns out the guy was only getting close to him to get to her. He never told me about this aspect of his breakup. It breaks my heart that my son had to go through this at such a pivotal time in his formative years. You do everything you can to protect your children, but then life steps in and says no. He decided to stay in the IC for a long time, and I assured him that he could talk to me about anything without restriction. What follows are my individual consultations. I see. If you've listened to most of my records, you know I have a bit of an anger problem. It's strange because I've always been a quiet, reserved, and stoic person. However, this whole experience has obviously awakened the sleeping dragon in me, which is pure fire breath. I discussed everything with my therapist, and when I say everything, I mean everything. When I explained what I did to my ex, he was both impressed and shocked, which I didn't expect. I seem to have sociopathic tendencies when provoked, which is no surprise given everything I've done. My classes are not that dramatic. They are more organizational, unpacking all the things going on in my head related to the breakdown of my marriage and trying to find a balance. Now, for the elephant in the room, Nina, I have no idea where I would be without this woman. I never expected to have such a caring, compassionate, caring woman by my side to get me through it all. We're still going strong, and despite our best efforts to keep our relationship a secret, it's pretty much in our group. She just gets me. She's always been like this since we were teenagers, and because she knows the pain of having the person you've invested your life in also cheat on you, she does everything she can to help me deal with my feelings. We split our time between staying at her house and mine. There was a discussion about moving in with each other, but her 5-year-old put the idea on the back burner. My place isn't big enough for 3 people, and I'm on a lease until 2022. So for now, we'll continue to split our time between. When the daughter is away with her father, Nina is with me. If she has a daughter, I am hers. As for her daughter, I adore her, and I liked her. I wish I could find the words to truly express how important Nina was to me in all of this. If you haven't taken the time to listen to my previous recordings, Nina has had a secret crush on me since we were sophomores in high school. But then she was an ugly duckling who thought she had no chance with me. She actively sat by and watched me chase, date, and marry my soon-to-be ex-wife, Sue, knowing how she felt. For over 25 years, she kept this secret until a week after my divorce, where we met for a meal and she laid it all out. I consider myself lucky to have her in my life. We talk all the time about what the future holds for us. Since we've both been burned by our marriages, we're definitely not going down that road. But we discussed civil union. We'll probably wait a bit before going down that road. But pretty much we decided we were meant for each other. And last but not least, soon-to-be ex-wife Sue. What I want to share with everyone about her is that there is nothing to share. Since the last time I spoke to her after her attempted termination, I have followed a 100% no contact policy. I know nothing of her current situation or activities, and I have no desire to find out. From my point of view, she is no longer a part of my life. That pretty much covers it. Life goes forward. I am writing this on the 2nd of March, so there is only 1 month left until the submission process is complete. By this time next month, I will officially be a free man, and I am eagerly counting down the days until I can truly begin the next chapter of my life. To clarify a point, I made an error in my statement regarding the clinical diagnosis of sociopath. I assumed that since my therapist said I showed sociopathic tendencies when provoked, it was a clinical diagnosis. It wasn't. It was just his professional observation. Also, my oldest son, who is 22, really has no intention of harming the POS. His words were made in the heat of anger. Update. On April 13th, just 1 month ago, Sue officially became my ex-wife. I was originally told by my attorney that it would be completed on the 18th, but due in part to the resumption of work in New York with the reduction in COVID cases, it was pushed back a few days earlier. Jeff, my attorney, called me on April 12th and asked me to visit him the next day. When I did, he handed me a revision note and shook my hand. I couldn't just stop there, so I went in and hugged him, thanking him for everything he had done for me. On the way home, all I could do was replay in my mind movies of everything, the last 24 years of my life, memories and history. When I walked into my apartment, it finally happened. I fall to the floor and all the pent-up emotions pour out. I hadn't cried like that in years, but it wasn't a sad cry. In no way. My soul felt liberated after being in the deepest, darkest abyss. That night I called my 22nd. I was brief, saying that it was over and that from that day on, his mother and I were no longer married. He asked how I was feeling. I'm sure he could tell by my voice that I was crying, and I told him I was fine. 17 then called and we talked for almost 90 minutes. 22 and his fiancée were looking after him well, and he, like me, still going to therapy. I won't go into the details of our conversation, but I will say that there is still a lot of work to be done, especially regarding his perspective on relationships. That evening, Nina came to me as always and I shared the news. She wrapped her arms around my waist and held me tight as, yes, I cried again. As soon as I got myself together, Nina assured me that no matter what, she would never betray me and love me with all her heart. Every word in it is true. While I don't regret the life I built with Sue, and I appreciate the 2 strong sons she gave me, it's clear to me now that I chose the wrong woman. Over the past 4.5 months, Nina has given so much without asking for anything in return. All she asks is for me to be by her side. I won't dwell on her for long, but she really is my hero. After the divorce, other interesting events took place. Remarkably, the POS reached out to me. Yes, he did send me a message. I think he suffered enough. His first act was to apologize for his role in all of this. He explained the implications of the binder I sent his mother. In fact, he was separated from his family. His devout Catholic mother, who attends church 3 days a week, was furious when she learned her son had ended a marriage of almost a quarter of a century. She kicked him out the same day, and a week later, the employer, having received a binder, fired him as well. Since then, he is jumping on the couch and looking for a new job. He mentioned wanting to contact me on social media. You know, all the places he blocked me when he was avoiding Sue. But he admitted that he was afraid because, he said, if I had been able to find him before, I might have found him again. I admit I could have gone to great lengths to destroy this guy, but I held back. I asked when he had last seen Sue, and he admitted it had been months. The last time he spoke to her, Sue advised him to forget her and move on, according to what Sue told me. I asked a few more questions, and surprisingly, the guy was open, perhaps seeking penance for the chaos he had caused. Much of what he said matched the information from the textual documentation I had gathered. I didn't answer much, I asked, and he answered. The conversation lasted about 20 minutes before he apologized again. Then I relayed this message. You're a 27-year-old man who has to live the rest of your life knowing that your own mother now hates you for breaking up your marriage almost as much as you breathe. I know you messaged me because karma is eating you, but I won't let you shut down. When I was 27, I was building a legacy. Now you're homeless, an unemployed homewrecker. If you are smart, you will learn from this lesson. Otherwise, you'll be a duck until you reach my age, assuming you make it that far. I wish you luck, but you don't need luck. You need to clean up your shit. With that, I ended the conversation and blocked him. It may not be the closure he was looking for, and I could have been more hostile, but I believe those words will haunt him enough. The next significant event is that on May 4th, 2021, Nina became my wife. Over the past 2 months, we have had a long discussion about our future. Nina made it clear that she had no intention of being with anyone else and wanted to be my wife, urging me to accept her daughter Anna as my own. Anna, who just turned 6, idolizes me, and I am her first father figure since her own father left her when she was 4. Nina was cautious about introducing men into Anna's life unless they had the strength, and I, having experience in raising children, met the requirements. Anna and my 17-year-old have developed a close bond that resembles an older brother, younger sister dynamic, which my therapist sees as a positive sign. Despite the destroyed innocence of 17, he sees in Anna an innocence that he wants to protect. So we decided last Monday to go to City Hall and get married. It took 24 hours to get the marriage license, and the opening was the easiest ever. Oz mentioned as if no one expected it, and Big Sister said that she was now betting on when the currently pending position would go up. We thought we were keeping our relationship a secret, but apparently everyone found out. This woman professed her endless, unconditional love for me, holding me in her arms and expressing her happiness. She has shared her feelings for me for the past 25 years, even during her marriage to Sue. She lamented that Sue had won and admitted that she had occasionally thought about having an affair with me. Even so, in all the years I've known her, she's given me so much and asked for so little in return. Even the woman with whom I married and gave birth to 2 children never showed me the same love as Nina. It would be foolish not to tell her his name. So now she has, and we are in the early stages of putting together the paperwork for me to adopt Anna. And finally, there's Sue. I have not communicated with her since my last visit to our matrimonial home almost 4 months ago. However, mutual friends, the few that remain, give me updates from time to time. Through one of these friends, a realtor, I found out that she had sold the house, and he had offered her a position as an assistant clerk at his firm, forgoing the help I was supposed to do because of her unemployment. She now lives in a small apartment next to his office, which he also helped arrange. It is functional, but only a semblance of its former self. Her weight gain has been minimal, and she keeps to herself, focusing on her work and avoiding socializing with anyone but him, probably because of the origin of the problem, starting with her socializing with colleagues. The last message I received from her was at the end of March, where I thanked him for taking care of her, but made it clear that I no longer needed updates. She is no longer my concern. With 17 coming of age in a year, I have no reason to contact her again, and I won't. And that completes my journey of betrayal, revenge, attempted endings, and mental agony. After that, I go back to the swamp to live with my new frog wife and her little tadpole. December 24th marks 2 years since the night I served my ex with divorce papers and left her forever. A lot has happened since then, and when I think about how my life was compared to where I am now, it amazes me that I'm still standing. A lesser man might have collapsed under the weight of all that I had been through. 2 crucial factors made me persevere. First, my younger son needed me to set an example of how to stand up for yourself and not let your partner walk all over you or control the narrative. During D-Day, he felt cheated by his first girlfriend. The thought that his own mother had done the same thing to me, similar to what his ex-girlfriend had done to him, affected him greatly. Second, my current girlfriend, Nina, whom I have known for 25 years. She was in my life before my ex, Sue. In the process, I discovered that Nina had feelings for me since she was a teenager, but had never had the courage to admit it. When Sue came into the picture, Nina stepped back and let me go. However, since then, she loved me from the shadows. After witnessing my struggles, she felt it was time to open up about her feelings, and we have been together ever since. Life went forward. Nina and I now live together in a civil union, enjoying all the benefits of marriage without the associated headaches. In the unlikely event that we decide to part ways, we simply break the contract and part with what we brought to the union. No lawyers, no dirty documentation. I doubt that day will come. Nina was previously married, now has a 6-year-old daughter. We both agreed from the start never to marry again, which led us to a civil union. My sons and her daughter are inseparable when together. My boys discovered their desire to have a little sister, and she filled that role with no problem. The relationship between her and the 18-year-old has developed into a classic older brother, younger sister dynamic, which brings me great joy. There was a point where I was afraid 18 was going to shut down completely, but thanks to therapy and our discussions, he has come full circle. He is still shy of girls his age, and I don't push him. He'll get back on track when he's ready. 23 and his fiancée are now officially married this August. The wedding was special, mostly paid for by her parents. Despite my insistence to contribute, her father, with whom I had developed a good friendship, was well aware of the circumstances of the divorce and assured me that he and his wife would cover all the expenses. Sue, my ex-wife, attended the wedding. The 23-year-old is on better terms with her mother than the 18-year-old, who has not communicated with her since the beginning of the coup. It's his choice, and I won't force him to be in a relationship or socialize until he's ready. The seating was arranged so that we did not look at each other, although I saw her, or what was left of her. The woman I saw was not the woman I married. She looked frail and frail. Obviously, the divorce took a toll on her. In my heart, I wanted to sympathize, but there was nothing at all. Nina at one point grabbed my hand tightly and asked if I was okay. I assured her that I was fine, and that today was about my son becoming a husband and nothing more. Following on from that, I got perhaps the best news when we went to see 23 and his wife for Thanksgiving. She is a chef and lives for big events. I will be a grandfather. His wife was 1.5 months pregnant at that time. After dinner, I shared a congratulatory cigar with my son, and we had a wide-ranging man-to-man conversation, the first since it all began. He admitted to me that he was nervous, mentioning that he didn't know what to do if something like this happened to him. I advised him that you can't force anyone to be loyal, stressing that you only control yourself and how you handle these situations. How you deal with it defines you. Soft times make you happy, and hard times make you aware. I don't think he has anything to worry about. His wife adores him and has been there for him through it all. I appreciate her for keeping my son focused and on track, as a good woman should with her man. The gender reveal is next month, and I'm secretly hoping it's a girl. At home, Nina and I are just starting to discuss the possibility of me adopting her little girl and having her take my name. Although she now goes by her father's surname, he has been out of the picture since she was a year old and has never tried to contact her. We don't even know if he's alive, and he's definitely not in the US anymore. Nina was born here, but is of Albanian descent. Her ex was born in Albania and had dual citizenship. He probably went back to Albania, and we will never see him again. Nothing for sure, but Nina has made it clear that she doesn't want her daughter to bear her ex's name, and that's it. I live my life day by day, work hard, and spend time with the love of my life and her darling daughter. Life goes on. To all of you in the dark, wondering if this will ever end, and if you will heal from the betrayal, the answer is yes. Make a commitment not to let the darkness consume you. You mean too much to too many people to let this happen. Reach out to those who love you and care about you. Walking the path of recovery from infidelity alone is a fool's errand. Nothing good comes of it. Believe in those who will support you. As for your cheating partner, expose the truth when you know it. Find the evidence, protect your heart and property, plan an exit strategy, and tell the truth. Never let them control the narrative, agree to gaslight, or give in to shifting blame. Trust your instincts. If your gut tells you that something isn't right, find out the truth. Never ignore red flags. It is impossible to see them with rose-colored glasses.